I love Aaron Sorkin. The West Wing, Sports Night, Social Network, and A Few Good Men, that is a good record. The man knows dialogue and has arguably written some of the best works in movies and television. Aaron Sorkin essentially is the master at creating characters who sound extremely smart. He makes characters as talkative as possible, unloading vast amounts of language with a pace and eloquence unmatched by most writers to this day. What's more, his dialogue has rhythm and meaning. It's melodic in a way that makes every word a note in a symphony of language. It's not merely interesting to watch, it's pleasant to listen to. You can literally buy an audio version of The West Wing and still enjoy it. Along comes The Newsroom, an HBO show about a fictional newsroom dealing with real events. HBO has given Aaron Sorkin complete creative freedom, essentially allowing him to write the entire show without any network interference. To make the deal sweeter, this was him getting back into the realm of politics. Sure, it took place in a newsroom and not the White House, but the show promised to deal with the ethical issues and challenges that come with making a new show. Couple that with some experienced directors, a fantastic cast including Jeff Daniels, and the freedom to produce without worrying about ratings, this was any TV watcher's dream come true. What could possibly go wrong? Well, unfortunately, something went wrong. Very wrong, as The Newsroom is the most conflicting show I have ever seen. Let's review this. Let's talk about the story. The show stars Jeff Daniels as ACN cable news channel anchor Will McAvoy, who goes on an angry and profane-filled rant during an interview when asked the question, "What makes America the greatest country ever?" After being abandoned by his entire news team due to the controversy, he then decides to create a news program that speaks truth to stupid, essentially becoming a figure unafraid to speak the truth and sticking to the stories that matter. Joining him in this crusade are executive producer Mackenzie McHale, played by Emily Mortimer, producer Jim Harper, played by John Gallagher Jr., associate producer Maggie Jordan, played by Allison Pill, former executive producer Don Kiefer, played by Thomas Sidokis, blogger Neil Sempat, played by Dev Patel, economist Sloan Sabbath, played by Olivia Munn, and ACN News president Charlie Skinner, played by Sam Watterson. The show focuses on the professional lives of the characters as they struggle to report the news, in this case actual real-life news such as the BP oil spill and the Bin Laden raid, and also their personal lives. Now we have all that out of the way, let's review. There are going to be three types of people in this world. Those who absolutely love and adore the newsroom, some stressing its idealism and intelligence give it high ranking among the best HBO dramas. There will be those who decry the show, exclaiming that it is a disaster, even going as far as to call it offensive. Very few people seem to hold the middle position on this. Interestingly enough, I do. I love the newsroom, yet hate it. I love the ambition, the dialogue, the directing, the acting, the news storylines. Will McAvoy, Terry Crews, and the political aspects of the show. I hate, and I mean I hate, most of the romantic subplots, most of the female characters, the lazy-ass plotting, Neil, and the absurd plot developments that occur over time. Let's go into detail, shall we? First, let's talk about what the newsroom is trying to do. The newsroom is attempting to critique and analyze the state of the news media in today's world by going back to the recent past, in this season, the years of 2010 to 2011, and examining the ways and how the media reacted to an event. Some people have voiced their issues with this format, as some people view this as using hindsight to better report an issue while ignoring the fact that the media doesn't have hindsight. I argue that while in some cases the show criticizes the actions of the media, the fictional news program in the show, Newsnight, makes many mistakes when it comes to reporting, and usually reports in a manner that real news organizations did. There are times that hindsight is used, but this is moderated through the mistakes the characters make from time to time. Overall, I found it to be an ambitious formula that could be very interesting to watch in future seasons, with the recent 2012 election done and over with. As usual, with any Aaron Sorkin show, the dialogue is outstanding. The addition of swearing makes some of the insults, retorts, and conversations memorable, inspiring, and much more hilarious. Now, when it comes to the acting, I can comfortably say that the newsroom has assembled a great cast, if not necessarily a great band of characters. Jeff Daniels, for example, is fantastic as Will McAvoy, presenting your classic Sorkin lead, quick-witted, strong-willed, determined, yet conflicted. Jeff Daniels brings some charm and a passion to the role. Plus, I absolutely find him to be hilarious when he reacts to another character messing up. The character's arrogance mixed in with Jeff Daniels' charisma leads to a very cool lead. The rest of the supporting cast? Spot on, no weak points when it comes to acting. However, while the actors are great, the characters less so. Unfortunately for a character such as Mackenzie McGale, Sorkin has written her in such an unlikable and oblivious manner that it took half of the season till I was able to warm up to her as a character. This isn't the fault of Mortimer, who provides charm but can't overcome the character's problems. Sorkin has her interfering in the personal lives of characters that she works with, behavior that I couldn't like due to the unprofessional manner it occurred, despite the fact that we'd been told earlier that she is an experienced reporter. Now, I don't mind unprofessional behavior in a workplace drama. Shows like Sports Night and The Office base their whole shows on unprofessional behavior. The problem with the Newsroom is that the unprofessionalism comes out of nowhere and is not justifiable. The scene I was talking about earlier was a scene in which she was talking to a complete stranger. Not even a close friend, mind you. She does improve later on as the show develops a relationship between Will and Mackenzie to the point that you actually start to sympathize with her, and she, thank God, doesn't partake in any more of the stupid behavior for the latter half of the season. None of this, though, and I mean none of this, can compare to the embarrassment that is Alison Pill's character, Margaret Jordan, easily the worst female character in this show. Margaret shares some of the same characteristics of Mackenzie, such as the nosiness. In this case, though, Margaret also happens to be hysterical and even more unprofessional, often screaming and yelling in a manner that suggests emotional instability and disrespecting her superiors for no discernible reason. Again, none of this is Alison Pill's fault, but her involvement anywhere in the show is grating. Then there's Dev Patel's character, Neil, who is an abomination. Not only is the character poorly developed in the sense that he has very few personality traits or relevance to the story, but he also is the most stupid character in this whole damn show. Again, I get that Sorkin essentially has the character trying to report on myths such as Bigfoot and aliens in order to elicit laughter from the audience, but it backfires. As well, it's funny the first few times. By the 10th time they use the joke, it becomes monotonous and a waste of my time. Oh, and John Gallagher Jr. plays the blandest character on the show, Jim Harper, who's all pretty face and no personality. I know that I've used the word unlikable a lot when describing the characters. For those of you who argue that unlikable characters are a tenet of complex drama these days, one example being Walter White and the Lannisters from Game of Thrones, I agree with you. But the problem isn't that the Newsroom's characters are unlikable. It's that you can't be bothered to care about them. Sure, Walter White was unlikable, but his intelligence, moments of humanity, the ruthlessness made him an interesting character. Sure, the Lannisters are bad people, but if one of them was suddenly executed, you would probably be shocked or in some moments feel a bit melancholy at the loss of such a complex character. The point I'm trying to make is that with the Newsroom, there are major characters that you simply won't care about, due to their one-note personalities or lack of depth, which can greatly diminish the drama of the storylines those characters inhabit. And in a drama with complex stories, you need to make sure all your major players are compelling, or you risk having points of the story that are uneven or at worst, boring. That isn't to say everyone except Will McAvoy is a bad character. There's Olivia Munn's Sloane Sabbath, who is definitely the most balanced female character the show has to offer. She makes mistakes, but is the most professional character on the show. She's intelligent, if awkward, and she also is the focus of what can be considered the best story arc the show ever did. Sam Waterston also does some great work as Charlie Skinner. His personality as a dedicated and hot-tempered alcoholic boss is both hilarious and endearing. Then there's Don Kiefer, played by Thomas Sadoski, who is definitely my second favorite character due to his moral complexity. He essentially plays the role of the cynic, representing the journalism that the Newsroom criticizes, sensationalistic and safe. He's a smartass who ridicules other characters for their over-idealism, and I absolutely love that. His cynical, sarcastic smartass persona is one that I find interesting, as I just love the archetype of the sarcastic cynic in drama. He also isn't one note and grows as a character, unlike every other character of the show. I'm probably going to be completely alone on this one though, as I think the show unfairly vilifies him in the first half of the first season, even if I never viewed him as a villain in the first place. Unfortunately, characters you care about are minor issues compared to the problems the show has with storytelling mechanics. Every episode of The Newsroom essentially revolves around a specific event or a series of events that occurred between 2010 and 2011. The story of the characters attempting to create the best possible broadcast of these stories is quite interesting. Stories such as the BP oil spill or the 112th Congress can be very interesting, insightful, tense, tragic, even triumphant at times. Unfortunately, there are 3 bad episodes in this 10-episode series. One of the episodes, such as the Bin Laden raid episode, are treated so poorly that they become annoying and grating. Why, might you ask, would an episode based on the Bin Laden raid be bad? Well, that would mainly be due to the romantic storylines. Now, I understand that this is a tenet of Sorkin's dramas. The problem here, though, is that the characters refuse to act in a sensible manner when it comes to these storylines. Characters refuse to tell each other their feelings, lie to each other for no reason, and act in ways that serve to complicate the romantic storylines, leading to literally no resolution by the end of the season. I wouldn't mind the poor pacing if it wasn't for the fact that these storylines aren't enjoyable at all. The relationship storylines include the romance of Will and Mackenzie and the love triangle between Jim, Don, and Maggie. The Will and Mackenzie storyline is fine, due to the chemistry between Jeff Daniels and Emily Mortimer. I don't mind spending time with those characters, as their exchanges are very interesting and quite often hilarious, even if it suffers from the problems I listed earlier. But the Jim, Don, and Maggie storyline is a sin against the concept of storytelling itself for 5 reasons. 1, it's predictable, as we already know that Jim and Maggie will eventually get together in the end. 2, Don, while being my second favorite character in the show, has been vilified so much by the show that we already know that he doesn't have a chance with Maggie. 3, Maggie is so hysterical and annoying that I can't actually believe anyone would want to be with her. 4, Jim suffers from being bland. And 5, the storyline literally consumes a significant portion of the show, taking time away from actual news reporting that's so interesting. I understand that romance is something Sorkin loves to do. I mean, have you seen The American President? That is a romance, and that is considered one of the best romantic comedies out there. But this? Why, Sorkin? Why are you doing this to me? How is this particular storyline a challenge for you? Again, I wouldn't mind, but it's such a monster of a storyline, diminishing the impact and quality of all the other storylines that come into contact with it. The Bin Laden raid episode is destroyed by the confusion of characters slowly learning of his death, being interrupted by Jim and Maggie talking about some crap you don't care about. I understand, again, what Sorkin is trying to do. He's trying to show the effects these stories had on the media and these characters. For example, the Bin Laden episode is trying to show that even with these important events occurring, the characters are still talking about their personal lives. The problem, though, is that if these personal lives are annoying, they disrupt the narrative, derailing the flow and making the episode really frustrating and boring. That isn't to say it's all bad. I found Will's stories to be pretty interesting. He is essentially the only character whose personal life is connected to his professional life. A bad thing happening at work has consequences for him personally, whether it be in the form of crankiness or something a little more serious. I would like to say that I'm done listing problems with the show, but I still haven't mentioned the absurd plot developments that occur from time to time. Whether it be the internet assassination plotline or the wiretap plotline, all of this essentially coming down to Sorkin's lazy plotting. Aaron Sorkin once did an interview with Terry Gross in which he himself said that his main strength was dialogue and that his main weakness was plotting. After watching this, I can safely say that he wasn't being modest. The main crime with the Newsroom's storytelling is that it's random, slow, uneven, and poorly developed. There are moments of brilliance, such as the 6th episode, which is brilliantly structured and quite moving in large portions. Unfortunately, episodes such as the 4th episode, the Gabrielle Giffords episode of all episodes you can get wrong, are complete disasters that are tone-deaf, annoying, and painful to watch. The show also has a wiretap storyline, which essentially is a corporate conspiracy plotline that is, by all means, completely stupid. I get it. Sorkin is trying to get his thoughts on the news of the world phone hacking scandal out there. But a corporate conspiracy? Really? I have no clue why this even needed to be in there. Is this something that American cable news suffers from? I understand that it happened in Britain, but why not, do an episode about the scandal? You do not need to derail your plot into complete fantasy to make a point. Another plotline involves an internet assassination threat against Will McAvoy, which is really stupid and essentially Aaron Sorkin ridiculing this complex man-made invention known as the internet. However, it's at least interesting due to it being tied to the best episode of the season, the 6th episode, and introducing Terry Crews to the plot, which is just awesome. I mean, seriously, no joke, that's awesome. Seriously, he's very good on the show, and I hope to see him in the 2nd season. Oh, and sorry, but I have to do this. Yep, that had to be done. I wasn't gonna pass up that moment. Sorry guys, but that was necessary, really. Now let's talk about the direction, which is generally great. The cinematography is good, the opening sequence is beautiful, and the music generally is good, minus an ill-timed Coldplay song. Overall, it essentially has the cinematic quality that comes with most dramas these days. Okay, so now that I've essentially gone over all the storytelling issues, let's talk about the politics of the show. Now here's the thing. I generally agree with the Newsroom when it comes to what it has to say. I agree with every point the show makes on political issues. Sorkin is known for his soapboxing, an unfortunate side effect that comes with creating characters who are hyperactive and super intelligent. Unlike The West Wing, the Newsroom intermixes the soapboxing with the plot, often creates situations where the moral thing to do is one in which adheres to the political beliefs of Aaron Sorkin. Whether it be creating a debate format for the Republican primary candidates, which is essentially an hour of Will McAvoy yelling at candidates when they don't give him the answer he wants to rhetorical questions they can't answer, or the calling of the extreme right as the American Taliban. Aaron Sorkin's beliefs are the moral center of the show. I don't mind this as much, as shows these days are entitled to their own internal philosophy or moral code. However, whether you will is essentially a coin toss. All it comes down to is, are you right or left? If you answered left, you probably are going to appreciate the show quite a bit. If you answered right, your chances of appreciating the show are greatly diminished due to the fact that the Newsroom is a very partisan show. It is a show that is unafraid to argue in moral absolutes and devastatingly critical to those the show views as damaging to the democratic process, such as the extreme right. If you are a moderate Republican, you may be able to overlook the political subject matter, but for those of the extremes, you probably won't be able to get past the show's politics. That is to say the show is hyper-partisan, as it does have its moments where the show seems to transcend partisanship. But the show does have a point of view, and is completely unafraid to argue it. So, in conclusion, the Newsroom benefits from an outstanding cast, great dialogue, solid directing, Terry Crews, Jeff Daniels, analysis of the media and politics that is insightful and interesting, and mostly interesting news show storylines. Unfortunately, the show's lazy plotting, mostly annoying side characters, absurd plot developments, and suicidal romance stories severely harm the show, often disrupting and corroding even the good aspects of the show I just mentioned. Thankfully, though, the Newsroom was given a second season due to high ratings, meaning course correction is a strong possibility. Aaron Sorkin did clear out his writing staff, hopefully meaning that he realizes the problems of plotting and wants to improve them. Overall, it earns a score of 3 out of 5, an extremely middling score. I want to give it higher, but the problems are there and must be fixed. So would I recommend this? Well, ultimately yes, because while the Newsroom is ultimately a very frustrating series, it is entertaining enough to warrant a DVD purchase or an HBO Go binge. Plus, I'm pretty sure that a majority of you guys will disagree with me, as I saw the IMDb page to see a rating of 8.7. Jesus, guys. But in all fairness, Suits has a rating of 8.9, so I'm guessing it's okay to say that IMDb scoring is kind of stupid. So that's my review. Please leave feedback on this episode and give me suggestions. I have a few more reviews planned for the future, so please stay tuned. Also, debate is really fun, so please argue with me if you disagree with my review in the comments section. Follow me on Twitter down below, and please subscribe. My name is Eric Robinson, signing off.